I didn't think I was going to say hello,
Hold
but
on,
it's
I just
interesting
go
to
on
say
mute for
hello.
a sec.
The
I think,
ladies
hold on.
knew. The ladies knew. Who are you, lady? The lady that's speaking up. What's your name? You're new.
My name's
Like the
Taylor.
yellow brick road.
I'm sorry. What? Taylor?
Taylor?
I'm what? Hayward?
Taylor.
Taywoo?
Yeah, that's how I used to
Your
pronounce it.
your name is Taywoo?
I had to go to I had to go to
Bro
speech
wrote
therapy. I used to say
You
Taylor
Tayloon?
as a
I'm
kid.
confused
Yeah.
now. Tayloon as a kid. Tayloon. So your name was Tayloon as a
So my
kid?
name is Taylor, and
Oh,
then
Taylor.
you were like,
Okay,
"Oh,
Taylor.
Taylor," and then I said Taylor because that's how you pronounce it as a
Oh,
kid.
but that's cute. That was very cute. Was you trying to impersonate yourself as a little kid?
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Very good. Yeah. You know what's funny? We should be more childlike.
Yeah,
We should be. It's very, very hard to be, though, isn't it? Right? If you spend too much
I
time in
could
front of
be,
a
but
digital
then
screen,
people
it's
think
even
you're
worse.
crazy.
What's that?
Hey, hear me out.
I
Hear me
wouldn't
out.
mind, but people just think you're crazy.
What if speech therapy
No,
is
no.
mind control to get rid of all dialects,
Speech.
Wow.
What?
to unify the
Speech.
dialect?
Can you
What
believe?
was the question? What was the question?
What
Speech
if
control. There is no
speech
speech
therapy
control.
is mind control
Speech therapy.
to get rid of like
No.
you know how like you go to different
No,
areas and they
because
pronounce everything different.
Data, dude, it's audio chaos. Data, just go on mute for a sec. Just let Rig speak. Just hold up for a sec.
Thank you. You know, like you go to different areas, they talk different. You can kind of tell where they're from by how they talk. What if like speech therapy is meant to like drive that out of people, like little by little? You know, like
you'd have to
we should be
classify
embracing
speech
our
therapy.
differences.
You have to classify speech therapy. It's too ambiguous.
Well, I went to speech therapy, and she went to speech therapy, and I wonder how many other people have normalized their speech, you know, against their own compelled nature. So.
Yeah, but
what
the idea is that the idea
of the R's, the R pronunciation like that, because that is such a common one. What is that from? Is that like? I don't want to say it's kind of dark, but it's like, is that from vaccines? Like, I'm not saying about you. I had a little bit of that, the pronunciation of the R's, but I grew out of it. Like, I was able to. I didn't really have to go to speech therapy, I don't think, but yeah, I used to. Like, so many kids have that, the pronunciation of the R's thing, but then some don't.
You mean instead of the Taylor, like I thought she left out the L became a W, like Taylor. Like TAYL.
interesting. You never. Just out of curiosity, if you've never thought of it, does it mean that it never existed, or it only exists because somebody thought of it? In other words, if you have an ability, if you have an ability to mimic things earlier than others, then why would it become a disorder or because eventually you obviously you were able to mimic, because we're talking about speech, it's mimicking. So if you're talking about delayed mimicking, why would that be an issue?
Well, that is kind of, with that pronunciation of the R's. Because like I said, I had that a little bit, but I think I just kind of naturally grew out of it. But when I was younger, like there's definitely
it's mimicking. You're talking about mimicking, Geo. You're talking about mimicking something. You couldn't mimic the R, therefore there's an issue. Is that what you're saying?
I guess it's. I mean, the mainstream considers it a mispronunciation of the R, which it pretty much is. I guess.
But how is it a mispronunciation of the R when you know how to do it now? Wouldn't it you just didn't understand how to mimic it? I mean, it's like anything. Like if you're looking at a singer, anybody who's singing, eventually they become a good singer because you learn how to mimic the notes. But without the exercise of mimicking anything, and maybe just you weren't taught how to mimic things at an early age, or your brain wasn't adapted to mimicking things in that fashion. But how you became, or how you did become, how you did mimic it, like you obviously acknowledge the ability not to, and then the ability to, because you bring up the story, right? Taylor. So you obviously remember not being able to mimic Taylor. And what would be the cause of that? It's not a disease or a disorder, I don't think.
They thought it was.
How so? Because you know how to do it now.
Yeah, but it was like corrected kind of thing, you know. Usually, like they usually had some kind of program. Although I think they would also say that some of the kids would grow out of it. Maybe the R's are a little bit harder to pronounce. There's a lot of R's in that phrase, but maybe they are a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, but
Just
that's not
overall.
the case. You know how to do the R's now, so it's just a delayed inability to mimic.
Precisely.
That's the way I see it. I don't see it as a disorder. It's just a delay to mimic. But it's not because you couldn't. It's not because you couldn't understand it. You obviously could understand it. It's just how it was being communicated to you.
Well, with that,
Obviously,
like,
at some point,
the
obviously,
R's basically let me just say real quick, the R's become W's. You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, it's like that's a lot what happens. Like,
the R becomes W. Or you mean dyslexic?
well, yeah,
Are you
like
dyslexic, or are we talking dyslexia? What are you talking
no, I'm saying that's one of the things that happens with the R's with the pronunciation. So like the word brick, like BRICK, would be like Bwick. You know, they would say BWI.
You're saying that the whole of the Chinese continent basically has a speech impediment.
Yeah, but that's not true because there are Asians that know they are, like the Asians that are named Ronald.
I don't know. Whoever did the representation for that North Korean fella and that American with the puppets and stuff.
Like if you put a W at the end of Taylor's name, what would it sound like? Pretty much like what she was saying, like Taylor, almost like Taylor. You know, with like the R like that. Taylor. Yeah, I can almost try to. That's kind of like that. Yeah.
Well, it's like saying Walter. You say it Walto, with a W.
No.
Yeah.
You know, R's are harder.
The Waltu.
Do you think it's true that flat earthers have a very low IQ compared to normal people?
That's a loaded question. Like,
You'd love
what's
that.
going on?
Walter, you say it Walto, with a W.
No.
Yeah.
You know, R's are harder.
The Waltu.
Do you think it's true that flat earthers have a very low IQ compared to normal people?
That's a loaded question. Like,
You'd love
what's
that,
going on
wouldn't
there?
you?
Are you trying to imply something?
Yeah, you wish you were this stupid, ready?
One, just hold on now. Don't get excited. Just answer my question. Do you think flat earthers have lower IQ than the average person?
No, I would say higher.
Right. Man, stupid
Higher.
radar detector.
Definitely
Yeah,
higher.
absolutely higher. Easily.
The only reason why I asked that is
Actually,
because recently I just read an article.
Thinking skills.
Recently, I just read an article where they did not agree with you, and it was, of course, a mainstream article, and they believe that flat earthers have a lower IQ than the average person.
Why the
That's 'cause
globalists
they're really
think that?
stupid.
I believe that.
'Cause they're not too bright. Because they believe that water sticks to spinning balls. They're not too bright to begin with.
Well,
Most
I'm going to agree with you here is that most people can't even understand half of the conceptual ideas regarding their own belief system and how it works. So it's not that they can't get it. It's that it's very difficult to get at first glance, like anything that you see for the first time that makes you question what you understand to be true. The problem is,
I was in kindergarten and I went to my kindergarten teacher and said, "How does the water stick to the globe, Mrs. Zeitzoff?" And then she slowly brainwashed me into believing there was this magical thing that made water adhere to the surface of freaking balls when they got really big, which was a really stupid idea as a 6-year-old to me.
well, here's something you're going to have to
It's
realize.
stupid when you think about it.
Hold on, though, but in all fairness, and I'm going to put this forth to you, is that you could take a spherical object right now and dip it into a bathtub or a bucket, whatever, of water, and there will be actually a film of water adhered to that sphere. I hope you understand that, right? So not to equate or have a logical fallacy or have a reification. In other words, I take a spherical object and I dip it in water in there and water sticks to it and has a film covering it. Therefore, there it can happen on Earth, right? But the idea is that even at that small
It would
scale,
depend on what kind of
That's
surface
not
you
how
have.
that works.
It's not
hold on,
film unless
I'm
it's
just being direct, right? It's for you to understand.
The surface is damp. That's
But I'm
damp
just,
is
hold on.
different than like
But,
an
but
actual
I'm just telling you right now. I'm just telling you right
analogy.
now. I'm telling you right now, though, whether you like it or not, factually, I can take a object that's spherical, I can dip it in water, and it will completely be covered in water and have a film over it, adhered to it. So I'm not saying that is what's happening to Earth, but I'm just saying
but
I
it
can
won't,
take
it
a
won't
small
stay that
object.
way.
If it was
right?
silicone, it would roll.
Hold on, I know it'll evaporate and right? So we haven't taken a spherical object. We haven't taken a spherical object.
Forces of water,
So
which would be overtaken by
Here would be an interesting
raindrops.
experiment. Here would be an interesting experiment for you guys to do. Take a square, clear box, okay, with a plexiglass, and it's a box. Inside that box, and you see evaporation. And when you do that, that object that is spherical inside that contained box will have water all around it.
So you had to invoke a
Just
box
so
to
you
get it
Can
done.
I respond at this point?
There has to be contained for sure. There has to be a way to contain pressure so you can have temperature change for sure for this object
Go ahead,
sphere
Taylor.
to maintain water surrounding it. But just giving you an example, you can do it small scale. You can put a spherical object inside a box, give it temperature differences, add water
We
to
get
it.
it. We
and
get it. We
that
acknowledge that.
spherical
Move on.
object will actually have a film of water surrounding it. Just so you know.
with a vacuum
Okay,
all
let's go.
around it. No, that wouldn't work.
Great question. So here's what we're not doing is we're not adding any other elements. What we're doing is we're containing a spherical object as if it's completely contained. So the object itself is spherical, but it's contained. And inside that containment of the object,
Spherical.
it has nothing. It has nothing to do with heliocentric nonsense. It's just the idea is that you can take a spherical object, put it inside a box that has temperature differences with moisture, and that spherical object will maintain a water film all around it. Just so you know.
We got you,
How are
bro.
you gonna get it to hover? You're gonna hang it by a
No,
string?
Wait, can I have
great
a
about
response?
hovering, great about the suspension. As great as the suspension goes, right? We have to now invoke. In this example, for practicality, we need a support system. We have to hang it from something, right? Because obviously we can't put a spherical object inside a box that has no suspension or way to be
Right, because that
suspended.
would be
So we have to-
stupid. Why would freaking
Y'all chill. Nobody else can talk.
Now, ironically, now what we could do, which is funny, is because if you go through the thought processes of how they developed the model and the theories, we could take a spherical object, and what we could do for this example is we could put it in a box that has pressure differentials, temperature changes, moisture, and in doing so, if we actually had that box with the sphere inside of it, and then we dropped it or had it suspended, we dropped it from somewhere and it was in motion. If that box was to be in that perpetual environment forever, in other words, contained spherical and had the pressure differential between hot and cold, that sphere and the object would actually float in the center as the object moved through everything. But that's only a thought experiment, right? So I'm just saying in general, if we were looking at doing it, we'd have to actually physically attach the sphere to something inside the box. But the argument is would water adhere to that sphere? And the idea is it would. Inside
around the equator of that sphere. Taylor, can you go ahead?
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, first of all, the sphere would have to be, you'd have to determine what kind of a surface you have, because it could be hydrophobic or hydrophilic. And then if you were to have water around it, that would be slightly hydrophobic. It would form these water droplets. And then these water droplets can only be a certain size, because at a certain point, the cohesive forces are going to be overtaken by gravity if you do have water droplets.
Sure, there'll be water more at the bottom for sure.
The sphere itself would have the gravitational forces overtake the cohesive forces, and that water droplet is going to fall off.
Sure, absolutely would, of course, because we cannot, and this is the issue fundamentally and truly, is that we cannot duplicate reality 100%. That is true whether it's spherical or flat.
Cool, but we're basically saying that your experiment is not analogous. Cool.
No, I was just trying to tell you that a spherical object inside a box that's contained that has temperature differential and moisture inside of it actually would have a film of water that would encompass it 360 degrees. That was just the only exercise. It's the true thing that you can do. It's like having a terrarium, but a sphere in it that's very
It droplets.
It does, but the object itself would still have a film of water all encompassing it. In other words, there would be water.
When you say film, is it absorbing into the ball itself? Otherwise, it's going to form microdroplets.
A film would represent the idea that it's not absorbing. A film would mention it would say that it's adhering to it, and why it's adhering to it is because of surface tension. So water itself has for some reason has adhered properties that it does stick to things, and then when it does,
sure, man. But surface tension can't be scaled up like that with whole oceans, right?
Why not? Grand scale.
If you're looking at 65 grams of water will overtake the cohesive forces, and it'll fall off.
Even if the Earth was completely the Earth presents itself as a planar surface, right? So if so, then water itself will be swelled and bubbled in that sense, because if surface tension is true at small scale, then surface tension is true at large scale. Because
the molecules are different sizes.
No, but I know for a fact it happens because.
Can you make a claim and just pause for a sec, please?
If I take a container that's
just talking over everybody right now.
If I take a container,
let some other people talk.
If I take a 10-foot container and fill it up with water, and I take a 20-foot container, a 30-foot container, and a 40, and so on, and I fill each of those.
Do you want to have the conversation, Aeon? Do you actually want to have the conversation?
I'm almost done. I'm almost done. So if I take all those containers and I fill them up with water, all of them will show you surface tension. So it doesn't matter the scale. Let me. I'm almost done.
You said you're almost done, and then you keep going.
I know, but I keep getting interrupted.
And then when other people talk, he talks right over them.
I'm almost done. So listen, let me finish. Give me 30 seconds, please. All of those containments. In other words, what I'm saying is I've already done these experiments, whether it's a bucket, whether it's a gallon, 5 gallon, 10 gallon, and so forth. All of them display surface tension. In other words, if I fill water to the top of those volumes, they're all going to show me and demonstrate surface tension, indicating that it doesn't matter at what volume I create, they all display the same thing. Now, is it a fallacy to assume that if I do it at the large scale of Earth, that it would do the same thing? Yeah, because I can't prove it. But I can prove that as I increase scale, that I still observe the same. As I increase scale, I observe the same principle.
Yeah, zip it up. Thanks, bro.
Okay, let me know when I can
Does anyone
respond.
want to respond? Yeah, do you want to respond to him, Taylor?
Yeah, so either you're going to have something absorb into the ball, and that's how it's going to be consistently covered in water, or if it does not absorb, it's going to form micro droplets. And what's going to happen there is you can have a maximum size of a droplet, but you can't have an infinite size. You're not going to have this huge gushing water around a ball, because the gravitational forces are going to overtake this surface tension or cohesive forces in water, and you're going to get about 6 to 8 millimeters before that happens, and it falls off.
When you
So it's not scalable.
when you overload a system, that, of course, you just said it, when it's not scalable, we cannot scale. I cannot put the depth of like for the film that would contain the surface of a sphere inside a box that has moisture and it has temperature differentials. This sphere itself wouldn't have the exact film and dimensions of Earth. It wouldn't represent. So the film that would cover the sphere wouldn't be the equation of the depth of the Earth's surface. So of course you wouldn't have. Let me finish. Almost done. So in other words, you're right. It wouldn't have the same effect. You can't have the same laws of nature affect small scale in the way that we observe it and the way that reality is. But that's not necessarily true in what I'm observing when I take a bucket, whether it's a gallon, 5 gallon, 10 gallon, 20,
Please don't
50,
explain the exact same thing again. Please don't.
Let me finish.
Please don't explain the exact same thing again. Just don't do that.
But I'm trying to because you're trying to make one argument false because one argument's false and the other one is false. But that's not true.
I just want to ask you a question about your experiment, bro. I'm going to hand it right back. I'm just going to ask you a question. You can talk straight after I ask you the question. So essentially you're saying that you've done this at a small scale, right? And that you observe adhesion. And then you're positing that you can take that scaling and make it up to the Earth size. And well, you know, what your surface adhesion, like the molecular structure is set at that certain scale, right? So what you could do though is just come up, like you've got a certain size model that you created, make it double the size of it and see if you also double the surface adhesion on the ball. That would be how you would test that scaling issue. You just got to create a slightly bigger one, or maybe you can go a smaller one, and you just have to test how much water's on that ball. You get where I'm coming from? So you could actually test.
So it's not going to happen because I've already gone through it. So what I'm trying to tell you is the results. In other words, there is no way to, and this is just fundamentally true throughout. This is why we have applied physics and we have theoretical physics is for this fundamental truth.
You're making assumptions about the scaling issue of the molecular stickiness, man. You could actually test it. You can increase the size of the object and see if it actually sticks more.
They all do the same thing. So what I'm saying is to our capacity. So to our capacity, like in other words, if we take, I mean, you're still going to end up with a object, like for instance, in the sphere space, the sphere that's inside a box that's subjected to moisture and temperature differential, so it creates a film over it. It will always have a film over it, even if it increases in size. But because it increases in size, let me finish. Because, exactly. So that's the issue. Is the film thicker? Exactly. So that is the only issue that you run into next is when you find that you increase the size of the sphere, does it increase the size of the pots of water that would adhere to the surface? In this case, the film. The idea is that it should, because if we're living on a sphere, due to gravity, center of mass, that would produce such an effect. But the result isn't true. But nevertheless, the water still adheres in that manner to a sphere. It's just what we want as a result to see, we're not getting. And we're getting one result, which is there will always be a film encompassing the object that's exposed to moisture. Moisture in itself will adhere to objects. Some say due to absorption. Okay, well, I don't see how it's absorbed if it's released.
It depends on whether it's hydrophobic or I don't know, what's the other one?
But it can't be hydrophilic or hydrophobic, yeah. But it can't be absorbed if it's released and then back, and then when you have a cycle, that means there's no absorption, it's just cycled. So, well, it's absorbed, but then it's released. So you can't, in other words, absorption doesn't mean that it's not released. So when you're implying absorption, it's irrelevant because it's released.
See water.
So
when it's not absorbed, you're going to get micro droplets.
No, I appreciate it. What I appreciate it. So like give me an example. So
putting it into a container is just blows my mind to begin with. Like you got to put it into a container.
Yeah, it doesn't mean the sphere. Doesn't mean the sphere can't be in a container. I mean, even the Catholics in the like what the 1300s wrote about a spherical Earth inside of a womb. Like they even back then they admitted that the Earth was inside a sphere. The Earth itself was inside a sphere. They like literally have ancient drawings of the spherical Earth inside a spherical body, and that's the only way it's protected. I mean, even just look at old Catholic drawings. They wrote about all that stuff. They have all that theories you guys believe.
Got it.
Most of you
got it hanging by a string. You got everything.
Well, that's Pythagoras.
That you don't believe in. You don't have a box. You don't have a container. You don't have a string. You don't have the pressure.
Well, they're all analogies to something. The string would be gravity, centripetal and centrifugal forces, right? I mean, the offsetting of gravity, you would have to have centripetal, which is gravity, and then whatever motions that would balance out the centripetal attraction, which would be centrifugal, which would offset the centripetal. Centrifugal and centripetal would equal balance, right? If they were equal.
No matter how big you get a ball, water spinning on it, like it's not going to turn around and do a freaking 180. Like you throw a tennis ball that's wet, the water flies off it. Throw a 50-foot wide tennis ball that's wet, water's going to fly off it.
Well, but then again, it's
3,000 miles wide and throw it. The water's going to fly off it. It's not going to all of a sudden.
But what are you doing? But what are you doing though?
Adhering to it.
What are you doing though? You were taking your reality based on a demonstration. I mean, if that's really what you're like,
at least it's real. At least it's real. You're talking about theoretical nonsense. You know?
No, I'm talking about a system. that is beyond your senses, right? Like, I mean, you're talking a system that's within your senses. And of course, that's the idea and the concept is when you become a philosopher, you can't accept a truth that's beyond your senses. So let's say that somebody did have an answer and a conclusion because maybe they did certain things that are beyond your ability. They have an answer that's beyond your senses. But because you've decided to go, okay, well, I'm just going to go with my senses, and I'm going to take a tennis ball, and I'm going to say that, well, if the Earth was a tennis ball, in this case, it's called a reification fallacy, right? Like, you're reifying the tennis ball as Earth, and therefore you're spinning it, and then water comes off, and you're like, okay, well, look, if Earth was spinning at 1,000 miles at the equator, water should be spinning off of it. You shouldn't be, if you're truly a truth seeker or a flat earther, you shouldn't be taking that position. You should know immediately it's the wrong position to take, because it would be just rhetoric and BS, because it's nothing you can prove. You should really get my book, man, The Great Delusion of the 21st Century. The first chapter will suit you. It's about being a critical thinker and being a true skeptic, and not being anti-authority, but being in control and making sure the authority is working for you.
I'd like to address the last statement you made, something about, I can't remember what it was, but I'd like to say specifically that the laws of physics not lining up with the globe model is your problem, not ours.
No, I appreciate that. So the law of physics, what law are we invoking right now? What law of physics
we'll make this even simpler. We'll make it even simpler. Which law of physics can you use to demonstrate anything in the heliocentric model? Any single law of physics. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, you'd have to ask me what thing are you looking for? Because you're asking
Doesn't
me
matter. Any of them.
Oh, I don't know what they are. I don't know which one would convince you. So which one would convince you?
Any law of physics that you can use to demonstrate something from the heliocentric model. Any one. You pick it out of a hat. Doesn't matter what it is.
No, I understand that. You said that already. But which one would you want? Like you can't be ambiguous like that. You should be specific. Like, which one would be convincing to you?
I mean, gas pressure. If you could demonstrate gas pressure without a container.
So the idea is that if I had a point of equalization that was so gradual that it caused no forces or forced a change in pressure, is that possible? In other words, if the gradient is so gradual and so slight that I could maintain a level of pressure at certain altitudes so gradual, there'd be no, like, give me an example. So when I have a contained environment.
Entropy would take over, that wouldn't work.
I appreciate that. I'm almost done. I'm just saying, if there was a system that was so gradual and it was contained, right? I'm not saying it's not contained, because it only could work in a contained system. But if it was so gradual, now I'm not saying it's contained where it's close or whatever. I'm just saying it's contained in the sense that it's so gradual that nothing rushes off, right? Because it's such a gradual, incremental change in pressure, and as you have, like, for instance, like when you get really to the low bottoms of Earth and like deep sea, it's really intense compression. But then when you get up high above, it's like an explosion, right? Like it pulls you outward, and those two things happen at certain intervals.
How fast does a can of soda reach equilibrium with the outside atmosphere?
Well, here's my point: is that when you crack a can, it's under high pressure, because when you pop it, it creates an effect. There's an effect. I
got news for you, bud. The difference between negative 17 torr and plus 17 psi is a fuck lot more than a can.
So what they say, what the modern science says, is that the negative 17 torr is not actually where we're at. We're more around the 10 and 11 mark, not the 17. And because it's sitting around the 10 and 11 mark, so negative to the 10 torr, negative to the 11 torr, not to the negative 17 like you said, they're saying that there's no actual intense differential between the pressure of Earth's surface and negative 10 torr. if it was greater, they said that's what the issue would be. So this negative, and I understand that they have made measurements to the negative 17 torr, but as of recent, they addressed this issue, indicating that it's a gradual pressure change, not an intense one, as if you were changing a tire or filling up a tire or releasing pressure from a tire. It's not that intense of an exchange. The higher you go, in other words, entropy doesn't activate in the sense as a tire, or when you see Hyman, or that experiment where they take a chamber of gas in another chamber, and then they open a valve and they equalize, and the gas fills both chambers. That instant entropy that you see,
save us, Geo, please.
that instant entropy that you see, the energy exchange that you immediately see, is only here on Earth, and as you move up, it's less intense. It's more gradual. In other words, you don't have this volume exchange of filling the available space as you do on Earth, as you do up in the upper atmosphere.
Anybody else feel like their creepy uncle is trying to put them to bed?
That's funny. I would suggest after all that an omnidirectional endless void would be more than sufficient to rid this place of any air pressure.
No, I appreciate the severity of how intense you think the universe is due to our existence. But I'm saying that if you're taking a tire and you're releasing pressure here, and you see the PSI difference between the Earth's pressure and the pressure in the tire, and you see that rapid exchange, I'm saying the higher you go, because all the gases are created to the surface of the Earth due to plant vegetation, carbon, whatever. We make carbon, right? It's created at the surface of the Earth. That the fall off from that creation of the Earth isn't as intense. And if you think about it, if you were a creator, you wouldn't want any influences of magnetism or an exchange of energy that would rob the initial gases created at the surface. So that would indicate that if I had an open environment, like what modern
Dude,
science says.
dude, let's get a conversation going for reals. I mean, I hear there's a lot you're saying, but like, I know there's a lot, but I mean, can we get a back and forth going perhaps, or did you just want to talk the whole time? I mean, is that what you want to do? You just want to talk the whole time, or did you want to actually have an exchange and like hear other people's?
It's my bad. No, it's my bad. No, it's my bad, man. I just was hoping somebody would pick up on it.
Ian, do you believe in heliocentrism? If I'm saying that right.
What is heliocentrism?
The Earth moves around the sun.
And the question is do I believe in heliocentrism?
Yeah.
Well, I think that models exist, but I mean, I believe models exist. I mean, it's a model. Is that what you mean? Like, I believe that models can exist.
Reality?
Do you think I have no way to prove that's how do I prove that's reality? I mean, I was told once to prove that the heliocentric model was true is all I would have to do is watch where Venus moves in front of the sun.
Yeah. Do you
Does
think
that mean that it's a heliocentric model because I've watched the pattern of Venus?
No. That's not mutually exclusive.
Okay.
But like
So what I'm going to repeat again is because I've gone down this many times, is that to our senses, and even in pilot school, the ability that I have at the scale and capability of me as a human being, the Earth would present itself as only one thing that I'm capable of observing, and that would be a topographical planar surface. 500-600 miles easy, right? Does that answer your question? However, being that said, I'm smart enough to go, okay, well, if I had different land masses and different posts of those land masses, and I'd have different ley lines, and I have these anomalies, magnetic, refraction, certain distortions, radio signals and so forth, that I have these anomalies that I have to adjust for. And then I'd have these different patterns that I have to adjust for. Well, then I'd have to have two positions to hold true. And do you know what that is?
It's flat and round.
The Earth is such a giant sphere that it's flat everywhere.
Is that what you think?
I just love that statement. It's priceless. Or I could say it this way: it's flat everywhere because it's a giant sphere.
Is that what you think?
What I think and what I can prove are two different things. You understand that, right?
I just want to know what you think.
Why do you want to know what I think? Why does it matter?
Because I'm just wondering what perspective you're coming from, so I can better understand what you're saying.
But why does it matter though? Like
It
it shouldn't
doesn't. It
matter.
doesn't, and you don't have to answer. And I don't like when people ask me that question either. But I was just wondering if you were open about it, if you wrote a book about it, and you'd be willing to.
I wrote a book
if you
about it.
have
It's
a
there. It's
stance.
online. You should go read it.
If you
I went
don't
through
have a
the
hard
exercise.
stance, then that's
None of
totally.
this. Okay,
I was
so
just
I'm going to
wondering.
tell you the truth. None of this stuff is original. None of our conversations are original.
Oh,
This has been
if
done.
that's what
This
if
has
that's
been
what
done
you
in the
think. Yeah.
70s, 80s, and 90s. So all of our conversations are just kind of like, it's an interesting thing because it's about, I see kind of why well, funding is always good too, right? But money from the taxpayers is always good. But you got to understand like that what does it matter what it is? Can you prove the Earth is 100% flat?
Yeah, Data, she's just asking what you think, bro. What's up, by the way? Long time.
Hold on. Hold on. I'm not
Yeah,
talking to you.
you're gonna sit here
Can
and
you
preach to
hold on?
everybody everything you know, tell people to buy your book, and then when they ask you what you actually think, you're like, "Why does it matter? Well, you want to make it matter? I hope you think it matters because you're listening to me monologue all night. No, it matters, huh? What I think.
Who am I talking to
Stop,
now?
stop being such a dick, Data. Just fucking
Who is
say
this
what you
guy?
mean instead of trying to preach to everybody.
Who's this? What's
New
going on?
perspective.
Have I talked to you before? You sound kind
Plenty
of
of
familiar.
times, but you never remember because you don't give a shit about anybody but yourself.
That's not
Thanks,
true.
Dave.
See,
Rock and roll.
That's what it seems like, dude. Always. That's why people run off when you talk so much, dude. You always do this. Long time no see.
Well, I do it. I don't show up very often, and when
Yeah,
I
thank
do, I
God.
kind of do the same. I kind of do the same. I kind of do the same character.
Yeah, you're a character that's not being straight with people and running people around in circles and making them listen to your little diatribes at the same time.
Well, we kind of all have diatribes, brother. Even yourself.
Yeah,
Man.
you don't, dude.
realize that, right?
Your philosophical standoff is just not going to work with me right now. I'm just telling you, dude. Give people a
you
break.
have your-
She's trying to be cool with you. Taylor's
You
cool.
have your same structure. You have your same
Whatever,
like it's,
dude. Blah, 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 blah. So you wrote this
Well, it's
book
the
that's
same-
called the Great Delusion of the 21st Century. So are you
Sure.
saying flat Earth is the Great Delusion? Is that what what you mean?
No,
What do you mean by that? What's the Great
what I-
Delusion in one
what I-
sentence?
One sentence, okay.
No, the globe
is trusting, blindly trusting. Just for the trust value. I mean, you can trust your mom, you can trust your dad, provided you get good
And
parents.
trusting anything is the Great Delusion.
So
Is that what you're saying?
the
what you mean?
the idea is that if you come into this world thinking that the best interest, let me rephrase that. You come into this world thinking that the world has the best interest in you, and you don't give it one thought. Well, maybe you should give it a thought that the world doesn't.
I think
have the
everyone's
best
way
interest
past
in
that
you.
point here. That's kind of patronizing to anyone in here. We
That's
know
kinda-
that we're not going to assume that the world has our best interest at heart. We're way past that.
Sure, but that's the simplicity of it, right? I mean, it's not to
Really?
be malice or to be rude. It gives you an exercise. It gives you things to go through. Yeah, it's entertaining. It's
All
fun.
right,
It
that's
has
all it's about. I thought
history.
it was about flat Earth.
It is.
Okay, so what's your opinion on flat Earth?
I think at the end of the day, to our senses, the Earth is a topographical surface that's stationary. And beyond
Well, yeah,
it,
you just talked about planes wouldn't even work if you were treating it as a spinning ball. You have to treat it as stationary and flat, and the only way that's possible is it's stationary and flat. You can't have it be a ball and be spinning
many times
and
over,
and fly planes like it's stationary and flat.
many times over, when I tell the story, when I went, because I got introduced to this argument, I was like, okay, I'll go back, I'll test it out. I got, this is intriguing. I went back to pilot school, and I've told this story many times over. Literally, my first day in pilot school, my teacher, my instructor says, "Don't worry, it's flat." And he wasn't saying it's flat as a flat earther. He was saying it's flat because many people who attend pilot school, in this case, it was it's for a light wing license, which is cost you like $3,500 for the license to get your hours to fly a light wing plane. Anyway, it's just an introductory course into flying.
So yeah, flying
And,
made you realize that it's a stationary plane. It can't be a spinning ball. But you're in here talking like you're a glober.
Hold on. No, because it's all about the two. It's a separation, right, between ability and the inability. So the average person only has a limited ability. They have multiple inabilities to do multiple things.
Okay.
Which of course.
So wait, you just said, I want to repeat what you said. The average person has limited abilities and they have immeasurable inabilities to do multiple things wrong or whatever. Kidding me? How convoluted that sounds. What are you saying, dude? Just say it. Instead of trying to wordsmith everything.
I'm just saying that there is a limitation to the average individual. So
so you're on a pedestal, and the average individual is below you. Is that what you mean?
No, there's no pedestal. No. According to modern science, I have a very low IQ. Right?
No wonder.
I'm well, there you go. So if that's true, then that must be true, right? So
yeah, right. According to modern science, they must know, right?
You must be intrigued by the low IQ.
I'm intrigued. Yeah, I've never seen one before. Oh my god!
Low IQ.
You're proving it tonight, bro. It's called well, go ahead. You can plug it.
Go ahead. He says, go ahead, plug it.
The Great Delusion of the 21st century, right?
Look, it's entertaining. It should be fun. It's positive. It goes through the exercises. It tells the story. It's straight up. I'm not picking sides.
If someone was on the fence and they read your book, would they come out thinking, "Oh, the Earth might be flat, or the Earth might not be a ball"? What would they think?
I think if they fell in love with math, geometry, physics, if they fell in love with the story of figuring out where they lived and why and how the story began, and even how Copernicus came up with the model and his math, and from the difference between concentric circles to epicycles. If you actually find an individual that does those kind of things, I'm sorry, that's 4% of the population, if that. So the idea is that to fall in love with the story of where you live and creation and figuring out the models of life, the algorithms, the mathematical probabilities, the distributions of sigmas, whatever you want to call it.
Dude, your calculus sucks. Yeah. No one's listening to these guys.
Who's the author?
They've all got a philosophical bent in order to basically steer humanity with this delusion. That's the delusion.
What it is giving over the exercise of thought to somebody. That's the delusion, really. Is not allowing yourself to go through the process of thought, is giving it over to somebody else for a conclusion. And when you do that, you give up the exercise of brain power. And when you give up the exercise of brain power, you lose critical thought. And so the idea is
that's what you're asking everybody here to do, Data. You're just saying, give your thoughts, give over your time to speak, and let me just say all these things that you have to buy into. Even though I'm saying nothing, I'm acting like I'm on both sides and asking you if it matters what I think.
No, it's not about both
come
sides.
on.
It's not about both sides. It's about acknowledging. It's about acknowledging. It's about acknowledging. It's about acknowledging the fact is that somebody wants you to choose either side, and that's the.
We can acknowledge that. Now what?
Okay, so now what you go? Okay, so if probabilities exist, which means if I can't prove
probabilities exist, oh my God, they do.
Yeah, because I can't prove certain things, so I have to have probabilities.
Just
because
like
if I'm-
models exist. Your answer to that other
Okay,
question was
if I'm
like,
gonna-
well,
if I'm gonna have a
are
venture,
you
if
asking
I'm
me
gonna
if
have a
models exist? Well, models
if I'm gonna have a-
exist.
Yeah, because I'm going to have a venture, right? I'm going to have a concept of something. I'm going to have an idea of something. I'm going to want to execute that idea. I'm going to make it into practice. And in doing so, I have to have probabilities of my outcome. In other words, if I do A and I
Right.
do B and I do C, I should have
That's
B,
interesting.
right?
And you are good at the optics. I'll say that. This guy can explain what the globe model versus flat is with the Rayleigh criterion and the 1.22 and all that. He does have that rhetoric down. So that's interesting about you. One of the only things. I mean, one of the things. But dude, you're all over the place, man. You're in here like annoying people, like somebody said. Like you're like a creepy uncle trying to put someone to bed. Stop with it, please. Don't make a bad
I'm a creepy
return.
uncle, but somebody that's fucking
That's
hilarious.
what they said. You didn't hear it? It was hilarious.
I didn't.
Does
hear
anyone
it,
else
no.
feel like the
But
creepy uncle's trying to put them to bed, and you're like, I love that.
too funny.
That's me.
That's great. That's fucking Comedy Hour
You're
Central, man.
crazy.
You got to reclip that. You know what I
You're
miss?
nuts.
Is I do miss that clown show. That what was it called? It was
Clown show you
it was
used to put on for your nephew. Is that what you're saying?
No, again,
Okay.
don't get excited, brother. Don't come up with ideas on your. So what you need to do
You
is
fit
you need to
fit
go,
that too
you
well.
You need to step. Well, again, don't get excited. Take it back a notch. Don't project. What I'm trying to talk about
Okay.
is a YouTube channel that had clowns, and it was Flat Earth Clown Show or something, or Clown Show or something. It was fucking hilarious.
Yeah. I remember that. That was we all suspect that was Tim whatever is the big globe guy that used to go around. He went by actually Tim he went by the fucking CIA name of bin Laden. Whatever that was.
No, or yeah, it wasn't Tiz Osman? Yeah, Osman, right?
Tim Osman, yeah. Tim Osman. But Tim Osman that
You know
IPS
what?
came in and took Tim Osman.
Yeah,
Took his
exactly.
name.
Do you know that I asked Tim Osman the best question because he came out with the came out with the bridge footage, right, with the Pontchartrain, whatever, right?
Right. Jesse Kozlowski.
Exactly. I asked him
Or
a question.
no, wait, the Pontchartrain was actually what's his name? Soundly.
And I got some new videos and
Soundly,
pictures.
exactly. But it was Soundly and the other fellow there just mentioned.
Yeah, Tim Osman. Osman
exactly.
with an S.
What I was in a debate with Tim Osman, and I asked him the question: "What causes the apparent junction of the sky and ground?" And you know what he said? That's fucking hilarious. And this is my highlight for my moment in this whole debate for me. I asked him that question: "What causes the apparent junction of the sky and ground? Earth curvature and eyesight." Do you know what his response was? Comprises. I remember it word for word. He goes,
"What was it?"
He goes, "That's too much." He goes, "That's too much. That's too much. I can't answer that." I fucking burst out laughing because he knew damn well that he couldn't answer that question properly because he was invoking the Pontchartrain and the curvature. Right?
But how they still bring out that Pontchartrain curvature and act like that's some kind of proof. It just shoots them in the foot. I don't get why anyone would even do that.
He got you.
It's so ridiculous.
But at the end of the day, it's at the end of the day, for the local observer, and the way that Bill Nye, the science guy, educated children was to observe physical Earth curve to be localized as easy as ships going over the horizon. So if ships goes over the horizon, therefore Pontchartrain is Earth curve.
Yeah. We live on a much smaller ball if Pontchartrain is Earth curve.
Well, that's not true.
Okay,
Well,
Negator. You could have fun with, hey, Negator, I want to hear Negator, and we can go at it with Negator here. I don't have any interest in talking to him, but yeah,
Hey,
nice
Negator,
to see you,
I read-
Data, even though you're being a creepy uncle.
Get the hell. That was funny though. Thanks for bringing it up. A good material there. Negator, I read a comment that you responded. Your when you were asked a question, I read your response. Were you here for that? Somebody's got to work the cricket board sound.